Maybe Stephen A. Smith was right, although he was unintentionally right, which sometimes happen with conspiracy theorists. There's just enough truth in their theory to make it seem like they were right, when the sentiment of the theory was 100% wrong. Over the weekend, Stevie repeated or maybe even created the conspiracy theory that Shedeur Sanders was being blackballed from the NFL. According to Stephen A. Smith, NFL owners, they were treating Shedeur Sanders like he was Colin Kaepernick 2.0. They are keeping a proud black man out of the league. As it turns out, there were some NFL owners who told their coaches, told their general managers, do not draft this kid. But it wasn't for the reason that Stephen A. Smith originally claimed. There is a huge difference between confidence and false bravado. Confidence is something that has to be earned, while false bravado, it is a gift or maybe even a curse that you often give to yourself. Or maybe it's given to you by your posse, or in the case of Shedeur Sanders, his false bravado was given to him by his father, who through a Hall of Fame career in the NFL earned the right to be confident. When you're Cam Ward, when you're Peyton Manning, or even someone like Ryan Leaf coming out of college, you have the luxury of going into the pre-draft process with confidence. You have the luxury of skipping events like the Senior Bowl if you choose. Now, Cam Ward, he still decided to participate in the Senior Bowl, which was one of the many pre-draft events that Shedeur Sanders felt he was above. When you're all but guaranteed to be a top 5 or top 10 pick in the draft, you have the luxury of confidence. But when you're Shedeur Sanders or even a young Tom Brady, it's probably wise to go into the pre-draft process with humility. The last thing you need, a luxury that you cannot afford to have, is false bravado. Because your perceived level of talent, and that's all that matters, the perception. Your perceived level of talent is not enough to overcome your false bravado. Teams in the NFL and the NBA, they are willing to tolerate a lot of bullshit if you have enough talent to back it up. Off the court, Anthony Edwards is a deadbeat dad. A month or so ago, he filed a motion waiving his visitation rights with his young daughter. I'm sure that he supports her financially, but it appears that Anthony Edwards doesn't want to have anything to do with his young daughter's life. He's an absentee father. And you know what? No one cares. As long as Anthony Edwards is winning playoff games, as long as Anthony Edwards is playing at a high elite level, no one cares about his personal life. Derek Carr, on the other hand, he is a model citizen off the field. Family man, loving husband, loving father. He's a man of faith. I'm sure he's actively involved with charities. No one cares. Derek Carr has essentially been banned from New Orleans. I don't think he would make it through security at the airport. To make matters worse, not only is Derek Carr a bad leader, he doesn't produce results on the field. No one gives a damn about Reverend Carr, just like no one gives a damn about Tony the deadbeat dad. The only thing that matters is the results. Anthony Edwards has confidence. Derek Carr has false bravado. He thinks he's better than he actually is, which is exactly what happened with Shedeur Sanders leading up to the NFL draft. His level of talent in his own mind, it was significantly higher than the level of talent that 32 teams in the NFL perceived him to have. And his false bravado, it not only caused him to fall into the 5th round of the draft, it also caused several NFL owners to outright ban him from their team. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel is in the description below. Yesterday on the second channel, talked about the NFL's ridiculous investigation into the prank phone call involving Shedeur Sanders. Uncle Roger, He doesn't care when Cooper DeJean and Tyler Warren are prank phone called, but when it happens to the Golden Child, the NFL is committed to investigating this heinous crime. We went over the details yesterday on the second channel, so click the link in the description below and subscribe. There was a lot of speculation over the weekend as to why Shedeur Sanders collapsed in the draft. Obviously, the paid propagandists at the worldwide leader in woke ESPN, they tried to insinuate that mythical racism was to blame. Petey Rosenberg claimed that Shedeur Sanders wasn't drafted because the white man was afraid of a young black man. White America is so afraid. They don't want to see a young black man succeed. It's so devastating to see what's happening to the community that I'm begging to accept me. Like I said earlier, Stephen A. Smith claimed that this was another Colin Kaepernick situation, even though there was absolutely no similarities between Shedeur Sanders and Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick was blackballed from the NFL because he was bad for business. Shedeur Sanders slipped in the draft because he was a potential distraction. NFL teams thought he was arrogant and entitled. They were worried about interference from his father. Perhaps some teams were worried that Shedeur Sanders was uncoachable. Either way, the concerns were real. Yesterday morning, Boomer Esiason confirmed that NFL owners took Shedeur Sanders off of their draft boards. Basically, Boomer Esiason confirmed that several NFL owners, they blackballed Shedeur Sanders from their team. Watch it for yourself.
And they took him off because the owner said, take him off. I don't want that guy. Shedeur Sanders just torpedoed himself. I mean, he's very high on himself. And I think he was very off-putting to many coaches and general managers in the league. And I'm telling you right now, and I know this after talking to 3 different personnel people in the NFL this weekend, they didn't even have him on their board. They took him off. And they took him off because the owner said, take him off. I don't want that guy. I don't want this entitled person on our team.
Stevie was right. This is outrageous. How dare these evil NFL owners take away an opportunity from a black quarterback? This is racism. I'm sure that's what some in the mainstream media would like us to believe. Yesterday afternoon, I heard Nick Wright and his insufferable mullet claim that NFL teams are willing to deal with arrogance from white quarterbacks, but when a black quarterback is arrogant or confident, that is no bueno. Michael Vick was arrogant. Michael Vick was cocky, yet somehow he was still the number 1 pick in the draft. Cam Newton was arrogant. He was still the number 1 pick. Same with Jameis Winston. If NFL teams believe you have elite talent, they will tolerate your arrogance. But if they don't perceive you to be on that level, their level of tolerance is significantly lower. You can't do things like sandbag interviews, which is exactly what Shedeur Sanders did. Over the weekend, Jonathan Jones from CBS Sports Network, he outlined some of the reasons that Shedeur Sanders was essentially blackballed by NFL teams. I'm sure that you'll be surprised to know it had nothing to do with race. Watch for yourself.
The difference here is how he and those around him handled the draft process. At some of those meetings with certain teams that maybe Shedeur Sanders didn't really want to go to, didn't see himself going to for any number of reasons. Maybe they had a starting quarterback installed there. I was told that he more or less sandbagged in those interviews. I don't know if he didn't take them seriously, what it was, but he did not give it his all in some of those interviews. Rubbed some teams the wrong way. It was a pro day that frankly, was just sort of average. I'm not saying it was bad. It wasn't great. It was average.
There are 32 jobs available in this league. Hell, there's only 32 of these jobs available in the world. If you remove the teams that already have a franchise quarterback or a starting quarterback in place, there might be 10, 11 jobs available. There were 6 quarterbacks in this draft and maybe a dozen or so free agents throughout the league fighting for these jobs. And you have the audacity to sandbag interviews because you don't want to play for certain teams. You have the audacity to think that you're the second coming of Eli Manning and you're going to pick where you want to play. When most people are looking for jobs at 22, 23 years old, they're looking for anyone to hire them. They're not selective. They don't give a shit where they work. They just want to work, especially when you're talking about highly competitive positions. And Shedeur Sanders had the audacity to sandbag interviews and essentially tell teams with his attitude that he doesn't want to work there. Is it any wonder? Is it any wonder why Shedeur Sanders collapsed in the draft? But KC, this only happened with 1 or 2 teams. Yeah, that's all it takes. You don't think NFL general managers are talking to each other? You don't think NFL scouts, NFL coaches talk about potential draft picks with each other? I know the NFL seems like this gigantic corporation or conglomerate, but it's really a small group that is working these jobs. It's no different than something like the bar business downtown. Bartenders talk amongst each other. They talk about customers. They talk about managers and bar owners. Bar owners and managers talk about bartenders with each other. It's an incestuous business. Everyone is talking to everyone. Going into the draft, Shedeur Sanders was negatively labeled. Did his father play a role in it? Absolutely. But again, NFL teams are willing to tolerate a lot of things if they believe you have elite talent. Problem for Shedeur Sanders, his perceived level of talent, it wasn't enough to overcome his real level of baggage. Simply put, NFL teams thought Shedeur Sanders was more trouble than he was worth. But give me your thoughts on this. Shedeur Sanders was sandbagging interviews when he didn't have a job. He was essentially trying to pick where he was going to play. Do you think Shedeur Sanders has the talent to be an elite quarterback in the NFL? I'm not talking about a backup. I'm not talking about a journeyman starter. I'm talking about the level of talent that Shedeur Sanders thinks that he has. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, that level. Does Shedeur Sanders have the potential to be on that level? You tell me. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.